All right, let's just get right into it. You know, every now and then a product pops up that just makes you go, wait a minute, could this actually be a game changer? And today, we're diving into a golf set that claims to be exactly that. And honestly, it's got a price tag that's gonna make your jaw drop.
$449. I mean, just let that number sit with you for a second. We're talking about golf here, a sport where a single driver can set you back more than that. So yeah, a number like this, it's almost hard to believe.
And let's be super clear, we're not talking about just a few clubs. That price is for the whole shebang. Irons, woods, a putter, even the bag. So it immediately brings up the big question, right? For that price, can they possibly be any good? And that is the exact question a reviewer set out to answer. They got their hands on a set and did a really detailed test. And let me tell you, their first take was, well, it was a bold one. So that's what we're doing in this explainer. We're going to break down all the performance data from that review and see if the evidence actually backs up the hype. Okay, but before we get into the nitty-gritty, we got to address something kind of weird. See, when you try to look this set up, you find some, well, conflicting info. So let's just clear the air on that first before we jump into the performance data. All right, so here's the puzzle. On one side, you've got this super detailed video review, a real physical set of clubs with Vice Golf stamped right on them. But then, on the other side, if you do a little digging, Vice Golf is a big name for sure, but they're known for selling golf balls. You can't really find this specific club set anywhere. So yeah, it's a bit of a mystery. So for our purposes here, we're going to put that whole market mystery to the side for a minute. What we're going to focus on is the evidence, the hard numbers, the actual feel, the impressions from the physical clubs that were tested. The real question is, does that set, the one in the review, actually perform? Well, let's find out. Okay, let's start with the heart and soul of any golf set, the irons. I mean, this is where feel and forgiveness are just absolutely crucial, especially for a set that's supposed to appeal to, a lot of different players.
So kicking things off with the 6-iron.
The very first thing the reviewer pointed out was just how it looks. They said it has this really nice, clean, simple design. It just doesn't scream beginner set, None of that clunky, oversized look. It actually looks way more premium than you'd ever expect for the price.
But hey, looks are one thing, right? Performance is the real test, and this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the forgiveness here. The reviewer appears 1, and it carries 181 yards. Nice. But then they hit a really bad one. They even said it was almost a shank, and it still carried 166 yards. Think about that. Losing only 15 yards on a terrible swing? That's incredible forgiveness.
And it wasn't just the numbers. The feel of these clubs was a total shocker. I mean, this quote from the reviewer just says it all, doesn't it? When you're talking about a set this cheap, you're expecting it to feel like hitting a rock. But these? Nope. They completely blew that expectation out of the water. They felt soft, responsive, legit. And here's the perfect comparison to really nail this down. To give you some context, the reviewer said they had a vibe kind of like the Callaway Apex. Now, if you know golf, you know the Apex line. They're well respected, they're beautiful, and they are not cheap. So to even mention them in the same breath, that's just wild praise for what's supposed to be a starter set.
All right, so let's move on up to the big dogs in the bag. The woods, the clubs built for pure distance. We're talking driver and hybrid. So the question is, can they keep this amazing streak of performance going?
Of course, the driver is the start of the show in any set, and yeah, this one looks clean, it looks modern. But the real question is, what happens when you decide to just, as the reviewer put it, absolutely send it? And here's what happened when they pushed it to the max. A 257-yard carry, rolling out to 280 total. And check out that spin rate, just 2,000 RPM. Look, those are seriously impressive numbers, and not just good for a budget set numbers. Those are good numbers, period. They'd stand up against a lot of drivers out there. This quote right here, this just hammers home the value proposition. The reviewer literally says they've spent more money on a single driver that didn't perform this well, a single club, compared to this entire $449 package. I mean, that's just an absolutely incredible statement about the value you're getting. And the 4 hybrid? Yep, it just kept the good times rolling. Super easy to launch high, really consistent distances, shot after shot. Forgiving, too. The reviewers summed it up perfectly when they said it was doing probably more than it says on the tin. It just plain over-delivered on its promise.
Okay, so we've looked at the key clubs in the bag. We've broken down the numbers. What's the final verdict here? What does all this data from the review really tell us?
So let's just boil it down to the pros, based strictly on what we saw in this test. First,
The price. Obviously, it's an unbeatable deal, but it's way more than that. The clubs had a premium feel, they were genuinely forgiving when you didn't hit it perfectly, and honestly, they just looked fantastic.
So, what's the catch? Come on, there's always a catch, right? Well, the main trade-off mentioned in the review was the shafts. They're not from one of the big premium brands you might know, like a KBS or a Dynamic Gold. But, and this is the key thing, even though they're budget shafts, they held up just fine. They performed really well during the test.
And really, that leads us to the bottom line. The reviewer asked the most important question of all. Can you actually go out and enjoy a round of golf with these? And the answer they came back with was a resounding 100% yes. Absolutely.
So that kind of leaves us with this big thought. Even though finding this exact set is a bit of a puzzle, the performance that was shown in the review, well, that's undeniable. It proves it's possible to make a set of clubs that performs great, feels great, and doesn't cost a fortune. And that just makes you wonder, right? If they can do it, who's next? Could this be what the future of more affordable, accessible golf really looks like?